So after not posting any new material for a while, I thought, you know what, it's time for some new stuff. And this new video will be a collection or compilation of a little mini series of install videos when it comes to something new that I'm putting on this car. And that something new is a new set of headers for my Camaro here. And as you guys know, I'm a man of originality and I don't like messing with a good thing. And I love this car, so there's not much I want to change about it. But just for the sake of performance, aesthetics, and sound, I thought, you know what would be great for this car? A nice, good, breathing header set that also look nice too. So to keep with the car's bloodline and kind of pay homage to the SLP, the SLP guys that work their magic on these cars and the Firehawks, I decided to go with the SLP 1 3/4 headers that go into the 3-inch collector, that go into the 3-inch high performance racing cats, and the 3-inch Y pipe, which is definitely an improvement over the stock. My stock pieces are slightly dented from just, regular road use. The factory cats, they're factory cats. There's really not much else to be said about that. And my stock manifolds on this car are not in the best of shape, as you can imagine. 15 years on, on original GM metal. Doesn't really look good. A little too much rust, a little too much brown for me. So to get some nice, shiny, good-looking headers in there would be pretty cool. And I'm not looking for a drastic performance increase for this car, but it would be nice to feel a little bit of bump, especially in the higher RPM range, which long tube headers will allow this car to breathe more, probably past maybe 3,500 to 4,000 RPM. And I'm also very interested to hear what the sound is too. So there's multiple reasons why I chose to do the upgrade, but I'm really excited to throw this SLP kit on here because the SLP kit, which is somewhat this attribute is kind of unique to this kit, is that SLP markets their headers and their entire header kit as pieces that can be added on to your factory 4th gen F body without needing any cutting, any welding, or any sheet metal fabrication, which is important to me. The majority of us can do it. Most of us car guys can tackle that, but to be honest, I don't want to. I don't want to make those kinds of changes to this car. And it's simple and it's a nice, easy. I don't want to use this phrase, but I'll say it anyway. Bolt-on installation to where they market this as a kit that can go straight on the car. You plug and play completely. Few little wiring hacks, which hopefully I'll show you guys in the future, but nothing too daunting that I would think that you need to be some kind of professional or even a weekly automotive mechanic to tackle. It'll just be interesting to get into the crevices of this engine. As you know, these cars are known for having 1/3 of the block behind the cowl. So this will be really interesting, but I just wanted to show you guys this install, and hopefully I can make this video into a collection of the different components that are included and also the steps that I took that I felt were the easiest for this particular setup to go into this kind of car. And just as a reminder, like I'm talking about, is the 1998 through 2002 LS1 GM F body, which is obviously going to include your any of your Firebirds, your Trans Ams, your Camaros, and Trans Am Firehawks. So any 4th generation F body 98 or newer, this kit will be applicable to. Now I will be including individual part numbers for these components because between 98 and 02, like I've probably outlined in my previous videos, there's minor changes in the emissions equipment in these cars. So there's very few pieces that are unique to the last 2 years, this being in 02. The 01 and 02 will have maybe a piece or two different in the kit than an early 98 car will have. But the good thing is SLP's website is pretty good about navigating that if you do go to order one of these setups. So I'll be specifically addressing a 01 or 02 LS1 F body with this kit, but this is also probably 98% applicable to a 98 car, a 99 car, or a 2000 car. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. I hope this helps somebody with their installation, because I haven't been able to find really good, detailed, and halfway decent quality header install videos. So let's get started. Okay, really quick rundown of the contents of this kit. Like I said earlier, my particular kit is specific to the 01 and 02 cars, but if you have a 98, 99, or 2000 car kit, it will be very similar to this, just some minor differences because of the emission controls and tubing that are on the earlier cars versus the later LS1 4th generation F bodies. So in my particular kit, obviously we have the two headers for driver and passenger, and the down tubes here before the collector are 1 3/4. I've heard of earlier SLP kits having 1 7/8 pipes, but to be honest, the extra 1/8 of an inch isn't a big deal to me. Now that goes into a 3-inch collector. And the collector then feeds into the high flow racing cats, or race spec cats, held on by a band clamp, just regular SLP band clamp that they used on a lot of their cars, and probably very similar to other setups too. But both cats will then feed into a 2-piece 3-inch diameter Y pipe, and just like the cat attachment, it's all those wide heavy duty band clamps, which seem to be made of pretty good quality metal. Factory like AC Delco manifold gaskets are provided for the gap in between the header and the block, obviously. And then the little miscellaneous stuff that's included for the 01 and 02 kits are an EGR block-off plate that goes on the passenger side. Here are some O2 sensor extensions, one for driver, one for passenger side, and there's also an ABS wire extension that's included in here. There's zip ties for attaching, I believe, the ABS harness to another wire into a bundle, just to make things easier and give you some more room. Hopefully I can get some footage of that, but if not, the description of what needs to be done is pretty well labeled in the instructions for this kit. Also are obviously the gaskets for the EGR block-off plate, and also for the AIR tubes that go into the stock manifolds, which have attachment points. Let's see if I can see some. That will have these attachment points on the aftermarket manifolds, so you won't have to worry about your emissions controls going crazy or the computer throwing some very strange codes or acting weird. So you have gaskets, wiring adapters, zip ties, a couple studs, and a couple washers for these components. So that's the entire kit for, like I said, the 01 and 02 cars, and I'll be sure to include part numbers in the description just in case anybody's curious on what any of these individual components are labeled as, but they should all be outlined on SLP's website if you go under the 1982 through 2002 Camaro Firebird section. Also provided was an instruction sheet which you can download from their website. I've printed it in 4 pages, and it has, you know, some helpful illustrations and a step-by-step guide. Like I said, 4 pages with a few pictures. But I thought to help myself a little more, I found an SLP header install guide online. I'll try and find the link to it and post it in the description as well. That will help you guys out. This is a lot more detailed and somebody's personal approach to it. I mean, yeah, it's 44 lines long of instructions, but I'm just going to keep this to my side just in case I need it, and If need be, I might include some of this in my step-by-step for you guys. So we'll see if I end up using any of these instructions, but this is just my backup. Really, you can probably get away with just the normal SLP instructions, which, like I said, are easily downloadable from the website. Briefly, I just wanted to go over my jacking setup that I have here in order to get the car where it's at. Right now, the front's sitting at about 2 feet off the ground, and the rear is about 15 to 20 inches off the ground. And accessibility is a big thing when it comes to header install in these cars, only because of the awkward angles and just places that you need to get to that are simply just going to be a pain, you know, any way you go about it. And being somebody that doesn't have a professional lift or access to one, I wanted to give you guys the best idea of how to do it at home if you just have some simple things that are, you know, do not cost a lot of money or that are very cheap relative to paying someone for a lift or even considering buying a lift yourself. So as far as the DIY approach, I got my front tires off the ground by using my 2 vehicle ramps there, or my 2 wheel ramps, whatever you want to call them. And then after I got the front lifted, I came back, and to choose a jacking point, I decided on my rear differential as my jacking point, only because it's centrally located, it's structurally, you know, pretty strong, and I knew it would raise the rear axle evenly in order to give myself clearance for the 2 ramps that I had back there. One important thing is when you're lifting by your rear diff is to make sure that you do not catch the differential cover plate that is the back end of the housing, because if you catch that, then you'll either cause damage to it or you'll cause a massive, you know, Exxon Valdez, you know, grade leak of differential fluid all over your floor, and nobody wants that. So I lifted this car by the rear diff using a low profile jack that I bought for cheap at a local hardware store. So I got the rear off the ground by the diff housing. After the rear came up, I put these 2 other vehicle ramps underneath it, and as you can see, I've got them facing the opposite direction as I do the front, so it acts as kind of a wheel chock to keep the back from rolling out. And while you're jacking this thing up, or while you're lifting your car in general, you should always make sure that the weight isn't shifting in a direction that you don't want it to. And it's not a bad idea to have a spotter look out or have a friend help you get this thing off the ground. After I got my rear up on the rear ramps, then I had all 4 tires on the ramps. I then went to the front, found a nice solid frame member, often called the K member or the front cross brace. A lot of people have a different terminology for it. Hopefully, in later on in the video or an additional part, I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to my forward jack point. But I use the black painted cross member that sits almost directly under the block to lift my front. And after lifting the front, I put jack stands on another sturdy part of the frame that's not too far from the factory jack points. I don't like the factory jack points only because they like to crush very easy, and that I don't feel like dealing with that. So that's how I got it where it's at. So right now the car is just resting on jack stands on front, vehicle ramps with the stop on the back, and the forward ramps are just acting as nothing but a safety, just in case for some reason, I doubt they would, but for some reason if my jack stands fail, the ramps will act as a buffer. Okay, so just as a quick explanation as to what I did for my jacking for the front, because this often confuses people about, what's a proper place to use on these cars. Well, here we are, this front of the car, there's the air dam right there. There's the block. You have this black cross member right there. Mine's labeled with the factory markings of V8. But anyway, that black plate right there, I used the very center of that plate, and I put a cushion in between my jack and the plate, and I lifted the entire front end by nothing more than that plate, and I didn't experience any kind of collapse or mental fatigue or any kind of unwanted flexing that scared me or I thought would hurt the car in any way. So that's the part that I chose to lift up by. And then once I had the car high enough for my jack stands to reach, see if we can scoot it a little bit.
Anyway, once I had that car high enough for my jack stands to reach, there's another underbody piece that has 3 holes slotted into it, and I have the jack stand sitting right underneath the second hole. There's the first, the jack stand is under the second, and the third's out of view, and I just have the exact same setup on the other side. And that also, once again, that was very sturdy, and I didn't notice any kind of unwanted flexing or strange noises or anything that made me feel uncomfortable. But it's always a good idea to have something like these wheel ramps underneath the front tires. Even though the jack stands are rated correctly and they're safe jack stands to use, it's never a bad idea just to give yourself a backup, and just in case my stands fail, I mean, the car might fall maybe a whole 3 inches. That's just all for safety. You never want to be short on something that could really cause you harm.